Have you ever met a girl that you tried to date, but a year to make love she wanted you to wait? Let me tell you a story of my situation. I was talking to this girl from the US nation.
Chapter 1. SLACK BUCKLEY. It was about 6 in the morning when I got the phone call from my girlfriend. She was sobbing in her bed, so I left my apartment and headed down to campus where she'd been waiting for me. It sounded urgent, so I ran as fast as I could since it would take longer to get in my car and drive there. She let me in at the door, her eyes still misty as fuck, and her voice more broken than a seagull with a sore throat when she greeted me. We left the lobby/entryway since it was only 24 degrees outside and I am not really that big fan of the cold, especially with my jacket hanging on the hook, leaving my apartment. She was running faster than I could. The halls weren't crowded at 6:15, especially on a Friday morning, so I could make my way to a room at my own leisurely pace. I had to stop when I got there to catch my breath, and there she was on the bed. Her roommate had gone home for the weekend, fortunately, because she never wanted to let anyone other than me see her crying like this. By this point, I still didn't know what was going on. "Babe, what's wrong?" I asked, taking a seat by her side. I went to hug her and she kind of backed off a little bit, and I stood up and took a seat in the chair on the other side of the room. She hadn't done this before, but perhaps she just needed a little bit of space. "Slack," she started, barely able to get the words out. She paused, stood up, and left the room for a moment. I sat there pondering, looking down at my shoes that were still covered in snow from the 10 inches we had gotten the night prior. It had to be serious. She wouldn't have this much trouble finding the words if it weren't. I looked at the clock on my cell phone and it was December 10th. I knew around what time of the month it was. Perhaps that could have meant it. But I didn't know. I don't know that much about women and how their bodies work. I slouched back in my chair, rested my arms on her desk, and braced myself. She came back in and slapped me across the face. It was refreshing, but not quite what I was expecting. I then felt something small land in my lap. I knew what it was after I looked at it. I took a moment to gather my thoughts, and then it hit me, and like that, I was out cold. "Okay, let's do it," I heard Megan's voice say. She was the staff member on call that afternoon on the second floor, and when I had passed out, someone figured that getting me somewhere soft was worth it since I woke up on Glacia's bed, not remembering a thing. I looked at my watch. 9:30. It had been almost 3 hours. "Slack, are you alright?" Glacia asked me. I got up out of bed and hugged her, still somewhat dizzy. I don't know how I managed to faint at the news and she didn't. Or maybe she did.
I don't know.
I just know that the situation was heavy. I was only 20 at the time and she was hardly 19. But maybe she was. I wasn't in the mood to analyze the calendar to figure it out. "I'm fine, honey. Are you alright?" I asked her back, quietly. "I think so. But what about us?" she responded, her voice coming back to her little by little. She wiped the mist from her eyes, and I could see the emerald green pools, and I never wanted to divert my own sight ever again. She was more beautiful in that one moment than I had ever seen her before. What was different? Hell, I knew what the difference was. I still couldn't bring myself to say a damn thing. I just stood there in room 212, the place and time my life forever changed. "We'll be fine. Who else have you told?" "Just my parents. And they're happy for us, I guess. I couldn't really hear my mother over my father cursing you out in the background." "So I guess they're not so happy for us." I gave a chuckle. She smiled. I leaned over and kissed her cheek again. She started to blush. We crept back into bed, because I only got around 6 hours of sleep last night, and she had probably even less than I did. We didn't move until dusk. I knew I had to call my own parents, a call that I had mixed feelings about making, but had to be done. They would want to know. They would love to know. Or maybe they wouldn't. It's news I even had to sit to hear. Maybe my phone will lose reception. That's my excuse right there, for now. There's always tomorrow. I remembered at that point that I left my coat and my car back at my apartment on Dome Street. Sure, it wasn't too far from campus, and Glacia and I were going off tonight anyway, but I didn't want to walk all the way back in the cold. Weed, wanna bring me my car and coat? I was on the phone with my roommate, Shake Reed. We all called him Weed because it was a nice pun, but he also smoked more marijuana in one day than the entire United States did in the 1960s combined. Okay, it might not have been that much, but he smoked a lot of pot. I didn't quite trust him with my car, but Perry was gone for the weekend, and Weed was the only guy I'm at my apartment for the weekend. Better him than me walking in minus 20-degree cold in my thermal. Dude, you gotta stop. Okay, just, dude, come on. What were we talking about? Weed, my car. Oh, right. Your car. Sure, I think. Where are you at? Glacia's dorm. Oh, there. I'll bring it. Don't worry. He was definitely under by that point. On second thought, I'll just walk. Dude, whatever. Suit yourself. He hung the phone up. I ran as fast as I could to my apartment. Weed was sitting in the living room. His eyes were shot through. I decided not to ask. Went into my room and grabbed a nicer shirt. I didn't put it on because I didn't want it smelling thoroughly of pot, since my room never had marijuana in it, and my girl was totally against it. She didn't like weed because of how much he smoked. Dude, get me some munchies! Weed yelled to me as I walked out the door. No, buy your own. I've only got enough for my date tonight, I responded as I left the room. I jumped in my new car. I just bought it the other day from this quaint used car lot not far from the local high school. A candy apple red Cobalt. The guy at the dealership said some kid just sold it a few days ago. Said he was going on an adventure, needed a new life, a new identity. I think it sounded crazy, but it saved me a lot of money on a hardly used car. Better for me, I guess. I pulled up the Plymouth Glacia's building. What else can you expect from a rural Massachusetts college? I called her up, telling her I was waiting in the car outside. I heard footsteps running out the door. She was all dressed up in her finest black dress. It went really well with the suit I was wearing. She always liked my style, and the fact that I was man enough to leave the house in a pink shirt, black pants, and a purple tie was a plus for her. Nobody but her liked the tie. Everyone who saw it said it was like modern art. It was her favorite tie of mine, so I wore it for just such an occasion. We had a lot to celebrate. She likes Chinese food. At least I think she does. Maybe not.
I don't know.
I'm going to take her now that we're actually driving. I see a quaint face out of the corner of my eye. It has a sign on it, noticeable from the red light we were stopped at, that read, Jean's place. I'd never noticed it before, through my time in Washig, but it couldn't be too bad. How about there, honey? I asked, pointing back towards Jean's place. I've never been there before. Me either. Wanna go? Sure. I have to parallel park the car, because it's the perfect place for a restaurant on a crowded street. But I do it, and the car's fine. Thank goodness, since I can't parallel park to save my life. We walk in, and the waiter is one of my buddies. Sup, B? He asks. Buckley. That's where the B comes from. SLACK BUCKLEY. But that's not really the point. He's called me that for 3 years. Nothing much, Slim. How's about a table for two? I think I can swing that this way! Slim set us up at an incredibly nice booth and brought over a bottle of sparkling cider. A surprise for me. But Slim was a good friend, and I never knew he worked here, so it was an even nicer surprise. "Can I get you anything?" he asks. We order our appetizers and later our meals. I managed to have just enough to pay, and leave a very generous tip for Slim. $50 ought to do it. I slip the 50 out of my wallet and leave it in the check. I walk out, telling Slim to keep the change. Glacia and I get back in the car. I had smuggled the sparkling cider out when I claimed to have gone to the bathroom earlier. I had a couple of nice glasses in the car and drove down to Markman, the local public green. The sun was just setting, and layers of reds, magentas, oranges, and violets strung across the sky like beads on a string, each layer settling and blending within one another. It wasn't quite night yet, but it was getting close. I'm glad I planned a 3 o'clock dinner, because this timing was perfect. I got the glasses out of the back seat of my Cobalt. Nabbing the blanket I had stuck in the trunk before leaving, I set the scene beneath a large oak tree near the river. It was the perfect spot to see the sunset and watch the day leave the stage with an actor's grace. Shakespeare couldn't have written a more beautiful scene had he tried.
Oh, snap!
She didn't know what was going on. I had asked her to stay in the car while I ran to the bathroom. Yet another cheap ploy. I poured our drinks and went back for her. She started, and I grabbed a small silver box from the backseat and led her to the spot. It was one of those moments that the artsy types write poetry about or paint on a crystal canvas. I couldn't adequately capture it if I tried. "A toast to us and our new life," I said. "What do you mean?" I gave her the box. Peering inside it, her eyes went misty and barked the emeralds I adored so much before. She leapt and hugged me. I whispered in her ear, "Will you marry me?" Her tears blocked her voice and I couldn't hear her. She was speechless, but we embraced under that oak tree until dawn.
You got what I need, but you say he's just a friend, and you say he's just a friend. Oh, baby, you got what I need, but you say he's just a friend, but you say he's just a friend. Oh.
Friday, December 10th, 2010. Chapter 1. Slack. Slack book. Slack book. This is stupid as fuck. Oh.